Today we're going to talk about one of the most painful markets that we've been in for quite some time. It's been probably difficult for a lot of you to watch as, first of all, you went through this substantial crash from December all the way into February. You started to see that recovery, your hopes start to get up again. You start thinking, wow, we're starting to come back up to those levels again. 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, it's all on the table because you're seeing this upward movement, and it was relatively quickly. We almost saw Bitcoin double in the course of what? This was just about 2 weeks. So this was a very quick move to the upside. And then we started trading sideways. Interest in the cryptocurrency market started to die down. And now we finally are starting to see this downward movement in Bitcoin. And if you think it's bad for Bitcoin, it is so much worse for altcoins, because across the board here, you can see that altcoins are down in the double digits, sometimes all the way up to 20%. And Bitcoin's only down 6.6%. So we are finally starting to see the cycle in full force. We are seeing money move from altcoins into Bitcoin, and as a result of that, if we shift this over to Bitcoin levels, you can see that almost across the board, every single altcoin is down against Bitcoin. Now, the reason that this is happening is because of a concept known as flight to safety, which again, it sounds completely absurd, right? Because if you think about it, Bitcoin is not safe itself. But if you want to stay invested in the cryptocurrency market, just like many do, including myself, I just want to invest in the cryptocurrency market, if for nothing else, for the diversification benefit, because it has low correlation with other assets. But in addition to that, I don't know when the bubble is going to pop. And I don't think it's here yet, okay? And that's something that a lot of you missed from my previous video, because people were asking me, if you think it's going to pop, why are you still invested? Well, first of all, I don't think it's popped yet. I've said previously that I think there's going to be a second wave. I don't think this was that second wave here. I think that this was too small to be the second wave, especially if you look at the volume situation. It was low across all different sorts of exchanges. So I still think we still have a moment, I think, that's upcoming where we will see prices come up a lot higher than where they are now. And after that happens, then I'm probably going to scale back my position in the market. I will still keep exposure because, again, you just never know what's going to happen in the cryptocurrency market. One of the things that's notable about all previous bubbles is that they are very easy to spot, but very difficult to time. And we're probably in a similar situation here with cryptocurrencies where, I may not think that the bubble has popped yet, but it has, right? That's entirely a possibility. And that's what I meant with my last video, by the way, which is to be careful and scale your positions as if it is currently a bubble popping, rather than to scale your positions as if you're catching the dip or whatever else. Because you should be thinking that way. Otherwise, you might lead yourself to some excessive losses that can't be recovered quickly, and that is very painful. I've been there before. I know how it feels. Anybody that has invested more than they can lose has experienced that feeling. It's very difficult, so I feel for you. And again, the best way that you can handle that situation is to limit your exposure. But anyway, in terms of this particular market, again, another thing that people miss from my last video is they heard me say previously that I bought a ton of Bitcoin at 8,300, and they are confused as to why I was so bullish back then, and all of a sudden I don't sound so bullish now. Again, keep in mind that I'm only doing or telling you what I'm doing for my particular portfolio. So your decisions should vary from my decisions based on your particular portfolio. If you have no Bitcoin right now, then this is not a bad time to get in, period. But I do have Bitcoin, and I fully scaled my position at 8,300, and that was all the way back in February. I can't believe I'm saying all the way back, but that's how it feels. So that's different, right? I already scaled into that position, so I don't really, there is no time for me to get into Bitcoin until 5 to 6K. And I made that decision a while ago, back in February. So that's something that's important to realize here, is that even though I don't sound as bullish as I did when Bitcoin came down to this level the first time, that is simply the result of the fact that I'm already scaled into this position. So for me personally, for my personal portfolio, buying Bitcoin at any price above 6,000 doesn't make sense. Or maybe it makes sense, but it's not smart. It's not intelligent for my particular portfolio because it exposes me more than I would like to be to this particular market. Anyway, in terms of what you should be doing here, so this is a difficult scenario for a lot of people. Number one, as we are moving into this Bitcoin cycle, or already have moved into this Bitcoin cycle, we are now above 45% dominance. So at above 45% dominance, keep in mind that this was sort of the range that I've been looking for quite some time, roughly 45 to 50%. I've always been talking about the upper end of that range because I do think that 50% is still in the cards, which means that altcoins can still bleed significantly against Bitcoin. In other words, it may seem like there's a dip here, right? But there seemed like there was a dip when dominance was at 40%. And I told you guys at 40%, I still think that Bitcoin's the better investment. Well, at 45% here, you can still make the decision to buy into some altcoins, but I would still be selective at this point in time. So if we go ahead and look at some of these altcoins in Satoshi levels, for example, my investment in Cardano was a complete mistake. I definitely lost a pretty decent amount of money on that because I bought in at 2.6 thousand Satoshi. Again, that was a relatively small position size, but I would have just much rather have held Bitcoin in that particular situation. So what likely would have been preferable for me is to wait until Cardano came down to those lower 1,000 Satoshi levels, because in that particular situation, I would have been able to buy it next to another support level that it has. If we go ahead and click here and go into the chart, I believe there is some support down at these lower 1,000 area. Yeah, roughly around 1,200 Satoshi or so. And then there's really no support until you get down into like the 500 Satoshi range, which is 400 to 600 Satoshi range, which is that's pretty bad. And that's part of the problem with investing in something like Cardano, which really doesn't have any meaningful catalyst. So you're just trading it off of technicals. So again, this was a mistake that I made. Some of the other cryptocurrencies, though, that I'm looking at, again, you guys know that I've always been looking at Monero, for example. I'm still not buying into that. I mentioned before that I don't want to buy it at any level above 2.5 million Satoshi. Well, I'm probably not going to buy it until it gets down to around 2 million Satoshi. That's sort of my first target level for Monero, and I probably will do a layered buy-in, because if we see this move down to, say, 2 million Satoshi, and this is only at 47% dominance, then I know that there's more potential downside coming in the future, which means that I'm probably going to want to be a little bit more conservative with my positions, which means that I probably will want to buy in a little bit lower than I normally would want to otherwise. And that's the general idea here, to look for altcoins that are trading at very low Satoshi levels. I still don't think Ethereum is there yet. Again, keep in mind that for Ethereum in particular, we had a very, very bullish run up. I mean, insanely bullish run. We went from 2.5 million Satoshi, if I recall. I believe that was the low point. All right, we went from 2.5 million Satoshi. I can't quite capture the bottom here, but that's roughly where we went, all the way up to roughly 12 million Satoshi at its peak. Okay, we went all the way up to roughly 12 million Satoshi for Ethereum in particular, which is incredible that it went up that far that fast. It needed to come back down. So this is why I scaled out of my position on the upside. I don't know if you guys recalled, but I cashed out at roughly, I think, 7.5 million or so Satoshi. And then I also cashed out, I believe, around this point right here, around, I believe, 6 million Satoshi or so. So if you recall that, there's a reason I did that, because this move to the upside was insanely fast. Unfortunately, I didn't cash any out on the absolute top or anything. But again, This is why you lock in profits when you can, because things tend to revert back to where they were before. I still don't think this is a time to be buying Ethereum, at least personally. I still think that there's room for it to go to the downside. Should be interesting to see how low it goes. I might be wrong, of course. This is a relatively decent support level at around this, 6 to 7 million Satoshi area, but I still think that there's more room to move to the downside. What are some of the other coins that I'm looking at? You guys know that I had held into VeChain. I did fortunately get to sell out of that on Friday, so that was March 16th. My average sell was at 46,500 Satoshi. So that was a decent trade. I moved it from 39,000 Satoshi to 46,000 Satoshi, and I was fortunate enough to get out of it prior to this massive move into Bitcoin from all altcoins. This is not something, this fall was not specific to VeChain. In fact, it's still up from that 39,000 Satoshi initial position that I took. So it's not like it was a skillful exit. It was just very fortunate on my behalf that the date that I had chosen to sell it at happened to be right before the entire market started to move to the downside. So that was just luck in terms of that exit, but it did end up working out for me in my favor. So in general, this is the strategy that I'm taking here. Steam is another one. I mentioned to you guys that if it came down to 20 to 22,000 Satoshi or so, I would start looking at it. I'm still actually a little bit cautious about this one because even though it is trading at previous support, part of the problem here is that it was just recently trading at 10 to 13,000 Satoshi, and that looks like we're kind of going in that direction, unfortunately, for the altcoin market as a whole, because I still think there's a lot of movement that could be potentially to the downside here as people move into Bitcoin in the hopes of preserving their capital. So I don't actually think that I'm going to buy more Steam at this point in time, despite previously saying that I would at around 20 to 22,000 Satoshi. I definitely would have if it was a move unique to Steam, but because it's not a move that's unique to Steam, because it's a signal of the greater market weakness, and because I still think that Bitcoin dominance here can move substantially to the upside. Again, keep in mind a move from 45.6% to 50% would completely crush the altcoin market. I mean, these moves of 1%, 2% in dominance has a significant impact on the Satoshi levels of all altcoins. So I still think that there's some downside here, but this is another one that I'm watching closely. If you have no position in it, it's probably not a horrible time to get in. I just think that there might be better entries in the future. And that's my basic summary for the entire market, is that I still think that this is better to be in Bitcoin than it is to be in altcoins, especially as everybody's sort of in a panicked mode at the moment. When they are panicking, when the people are, they're concerned about their investments as a whole, Bitcoin is always going to be the asset that they come to if they want to stay invested in the cryptocurrency market. And the reason why is because Bitcoin has a track record. We've seen this before. The same situation happened back in 2013 and 2014. This is something that's just natural for the market to do. So even though, and this is something that I really want to emphasize to the people that are altcoin maximalists, the people that are saying that Bitcoin is legacy technology and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, well, I'm going to be honest with you here. It really doesn't matter whether or not Bitcoin is a good payment processing network or not, because the reality of the situation is this is all driven by perception and speculation. So if it's all driven by speculation and perception, and the perception of Bitcoin is that it's the safest asset in the market with the longest track record, then that's where people are going to go as soon as their confidence in the market starts to waver. But this is a good sign for you guys long term, because this means that entry points are going to start getting better. This is, for those of you that are in fact people that like to buy and hold, this is when you start looking at the market. This is when the market starts to become attractive. This is where there's some serious opportunities in multiple different altcoins. For those of you that are more in the income-based investing method, that means you're investing in masternodes, that means you're investing in proof-of-stake coins. It may be very tempting at this point in time to accumulate in a coin that has a decent return. All I'm going to say is be very careful of doing this, because it is entirely possible that a number of these coins that are altcoins, even if they're ranked in the top 100 or so, it is very possible that some of these completely die as a whole. Okay, so for those of you that are masternode investing, that see this as a great potential opportunity to buy a masternode that generates you some additional income, or to buy some proof of stake coin or whatever else, all I'm going to say is just be very careful, because this might be the point in time where we start seeing some of the, I want to say, crappier altcoins start to get shaken out of the market because confidence is lower. And as a result of that, people may not want to invest in them. So your income will probably be offset by a decrease in principal. So I just want to say, be careful if you're going for that type of investing. Let me know how you feel about this market. I know this is a difficult time for a lot of you. I want to say that you should keep calm during moments like these. Panicking is not going to do you any favors. At this point in time, it's better to hold than it is to sell, just because of the fact, well, actually, before I say that, it's still probably better to sell if you're overexposed to the market. That is a general rule of thumb. No matter where the market is, if you're overexposed to it, you're going to make stupid decisions. All right? So if you are overexposed, then fine. You can sell a little bit until you get your position size to a level that you're comfortable with. Otherwise, I would just hold. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm not going to be selling any of my Bitcoin. I'm not going to be selling any of the altcoins that I currently hold, which, guess what? I'm down on them quite a bit as well. That's why you try to put yourself in a position where you can move into a cycle favorably. So again, very fortunate for me to have been more into Bitcoin rather than altcoins. Still down quite a bit. I feel for you. I know how it goes. Just watch the market and look for opportunities in the altcoin market, because that's where the opportunities are going to be. And again, for me personally, not going to be buying Bitcoin until 5 to 6K. As usual, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure that you check out my Steemit if you would like to interact with me, as I tend to be a little bit more active on there. Although recently I know I haven't been responding. I am going to fix that at some point here. I've just been super busy with other things, but I will be getting back to that, so make sure you check that out if you're interested. Otherwise, as usual, leave a like, comment, and subscription, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching.